Hello and welcome everyone. I am Riddhi Shah from the product development team at Paperpal and I will be moderating today's session. Our focus today is straightforward to walk you through how to turn a thesis into a clear, well structured journal paper, breaking the process into practical, manageable steps. I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Faheem Ullah, who's an award winning academic working at the intersection of AI and research methodologies. Dr. Ullah completed his PhD and postdoc at the University of Adelaide, and over his career, he has authored more than 40 publications. Several of these papers originated directly from his own thesis, so he knows firsthand how to navigate the thesis to publication journey. With that, I'll hand over to Dr. Fahim.
Hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. In this webinar, we'll talk about how you can convert your thesis into a research paper. More specifically, we'll first talk about the goals of this webinar, that what you can expect from this webinar. Then we will try to have some context and we'll try to compare thesis with a research paper. We'll see that what is the difference between thesis and a research paper. So this will help you that, okay, if we have to convert thesis into a research paper, what would be the two pieces look like? The third point is then we will go more deeper into the steps that are needed to convert thesis into a research paper. So this is the part where we'll spend most of the time of this webinar. Then I'll share some tips for the conversion and we'll end the webinar with some key takeaways. So as far as the goals of the webinar are concerned, the first thing is that by the end of this webinar, I hope that all of you would understand that what is the difference between a thesis and a research paper. So most of you, I believe, you are either PhD students or master students and you have done your thesis, and now the job is to convert those theses into a research paper or even to multiple papers. So for that, we first need to understand that what is the difference between thesis and research paper. The second thing is that in this webinar, hopefully you will be able to learn that what are the key parts in your thesis that are worthy of converting it into a research paper. And lastly, and most importantly, that what are the different steps that you need to follow in order to efficiently and effectively convert your thesis into a research paper. Now, why this webinar matters or why even this topic is important to cover. So around 60 to 70% of the thesis, they do not even get published. So many people, they do research, but when they complete their degree, like for example, their master's degree or their PhD degree, they just kind of start their job and then they don't have that much time or energy to convert those into a publishable form. And the other reason is that you can't have the thesis directly sent into a journal and hoping that it will get published, because the demand for thesis is different than the demand for publication. But having said that, it is always very important that you convert your thesis into a research paper. It gives you some kind of recognition, it gives recognition to your research. And then there could be some methods, some ways through which we can more quickly and more reliably convert thesis into a research paper. And that is what we'll look into today. And then also linked to that point is that there are more modern ways of doing research now, and certainly those modern ways involves AI tools, and we can use some of the AI tools to convert thesis into a research paper more effectively and more efficiently and more smartly. Now the main point where we should start with is the difference between a thesis and a research paper. So as far as thesis is concerned, the purpose of thesis is to sort of, it's a requirement of your degree. So whatever research you have done, you put it in the form of a thesis, you submit it, and that based on that you have awarded the degree of your PhD or a master's degree. Now, research paper, the purpose is different. The purpose is to disseminate, to share your findings, to share your research with the broader community. The second point about scope. Now, scope for a thesis is quite broad. You have more uh, sort of flexibility to put in more content, but that's not the case with a research paper. It's more focused, more narrow. Number third, length. Now, length for research thesis, it is quite long. Like for example, my own thesis, it was 192 pages. But then some theses are even longer than even 300 pages. But on the other hand, for a research paper, it is quite short. It is around 10 to 20 pages. So for example, if you are submitting to a conference, then even you have more little space. And then if you are submitting to a journal, so there you have some bit of space, maybe around 10 20 pages. The fourth point is about the depth. So for research papers, sorry, for thesis, it involves in-depth analysis, more broader literature review, but a research paper, it is more focused and it has more specific literature review. The fifth point is about methodology. So for methodology of a thesis, you have to put in all sorts of details, right? But that's not the case with a research paper. You have to be specific. You need to only bring the parts that are contributing to the research question you're trying to answer in your paper. The next one is about the time frame. So for thesis, it could be from several months to several years, but for a research paper, it just is a few weeks of evaluation. And then who evaluates thesis? So it's a committee that is sort of organized by your research office or your supervisors who assess that whether your thesis is worthy of awarding your degree or not. On the other hand, for a research paper, it's um, the reviewers who, like for example, if you submit a journal, so the editor picks up the reviewers and they assess your paper whether it's worthy of publication or not. Then the audience, so the audience for your thesis are very limited. Only few people are, unfortunately, very few people are going to read your thesis. It's going to be the committee members, your supervisors, and maybe a few other people. But for a research paper, the audience is much larger. Many people will read your paper. And as far as the original contribution or research contribution is concerned, so in both in thesis as well as in a research paper, you have to make a significant and original contribution in order for your thesis to be accepted, and in the same way in order for your research paper to be published in a decent venue. Now, so far what we covered is that we looked at the main goals of this webinar. Then the second point is that we looked at the difference between thesis and a research paper. Now, the next point we are going to cover is that why many people fail to convert their thesis into a research paper. So there are some common reasons. The first reason is that the thesis, it's a big document, right? And then picking the right parts that what can be converted into a thesis is more challenging, right? So in this case, it's kind of like you have done research over a couple of years or 3 4 years, and then you have many findings. Now what to pick and what not to pick, that's the first hurdle. The second point is about the support you have. So during your PhD or during your master's, you have support. You can use university resources, you have your access to your supervisors who can help you publish, but that's not the case once you finish. So many students, what they do is that they finish their thesis, they submit, they get the degree. But after that, when they want to convert, they don't have all that support to help convert thesis into a research paper. That is the second reason that a lot of theses they do not get converted into publications. The other one is the condensing length. So as I mentioned that, for example, if I look at my own thesis, so my thesis was 192 pages. But if I want to make a paper out of it, so that would be around 10-20 pages. So bringing all that around 200 pages into 10 pages, that's another challenge. The fourth point is the strict requirements. For thesis, the requirements are not so strict. You only have to follow universities some basic rules and policies, like there shouldn't be plagiarism and so on and so forth. But then when you're submitting it to a journal, a lot of requirements come in. There are word limits, there are page limits, there are certain ways in which you have to write the abstract, in a certain way you have to write the methodology. At times you have to provide a replication package as well. So all these things add up to further sort of deteriorate the process which can help us to convert thesis into a research paper. So these are some of the reasons which people find hard to address, and eventually they're not able to convert thesis into a research paper. Now this is my own thesis, so the reason I'm showing it here is that I'll show you that from this thesis whether I was able to extract some papers or not. So if we look at this figure, this is sort of the way I organized my thesis, that okay, there is chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and how they are linked with each other. But then more importantly, what you can look at is that the papers I have extracted from this thesis. So you can see that each of my chapter has been converted into a research paper. So chapter 2 has been converted into a paper that was published in Journal of Systems and Software, then so is chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7, and so on. So all in all, I had 8 chapters in my PhD thesis. So first chapter was the introduction chapter, last chapter was the conclusion chapter. So obviously I couldn't convert those into papers, but the rest of the 6, I had them published in decent venues. And the reason I'm giving this example is to make it more, to share more personal experience, that how exactly I did it, how I converted my thesis into multiple research papers. And also there could be, because it very much varies depending upon the field, it is quite possible that you can make multiple papers out of your thesis, and it is also possible that you may only make one research paper out of your thesis. Now coming to the main focus of this webinar, which is that how we can convert thesis into a research paper. So there are these 12 steps that we can follow, and hopefully it can help you to convert your thesis into a research paper. So the first one we start with is that selecting the publishable content. What is it? What are the parts in your thesis that you can pick and you can convert them into a research paper? Then the second one is preparing an outline, then mapping chapters to different sections of a research paper, then writing abstract, introduction, literature review, results, discussion, conclusion. And then once you write the paper, then how you can polish it more effectively, then how can you have an internal review, because you might not have access to feedback from your supervisors, and then lastly picking up a journal and then submitting to their journal. Now, one point to make here is that there are 2 ways of submitting a paper. So sometimes we pick a journal at the start, we write the paper according to that journal, and then we submit it to that journal. The second one is that we write a paper, and after we have the paper, then we pick that okay, which journal is the most suitable. There are pros and cons to both methods. I most of the time do the second one. I write a paper and then I pick that okay, where I should submit the paper. So the first step is selecting what to publish. So as I mentioned that if you have a thesis of around 200 pages, you can't put all of that content into a 20-page paper. So you have to pick some parts and then convert it into a thesis. So there are some suggestions. The first one is to go for your strongest findings. So for example, if you have answered 3 research questions in your thesis and you believe that the third question has led to creating more innovative findings, more strong, more kind of in-depth, then go for that one, pick that particular part. Do not try to fit in everything in your research paper. Go for the strongest parts. The second one is about novel insights. So as I mentioned that one of the ways in which your research paper will be assessed is that how novel your findings are, how novel the idea is. Okay, so if you bring in something in your paper that is redundant, it will be very difficult to publish it. So look at your thesis, pick up parts that are very novel. The third point is that complete results. Sometimes, not sometimes, in fact, many a times, when we report research, there are certain limitations to that research, there are certain threats to the findings that we have. For example, if we have conducted study in a certain context, we can't generalize it to all context. For example, if I have studied a research question and I've collected data from a specific country, let's suppose I collected data only from US. So I cannot apply those results, or my results might not be applicable in let's say in Africa. So try to pick parts where there are as little as possible threats to your findings. The fourth point is to exclude the background. Do not try to bring in everything, right? Sometimes the background details that are needed to in a thesis, they are not needed in a research paper. A research paper is more focused. The audience is very well defined. Like for example, if I am doing research in the field of AI, so my audience would be most likely people who have some know-how of AI. So I do not need to define what is AI. I do not need to define what is the difference between, let's suppose, AI, machine learning, deep learning. Those things we expect that the audience already know. Then the last one is about the trends. So for instance, if you have 3 research questions in your thesis and 2 of them are related to somewhat saturated topics, but the third one is about a very trendy topic, right? So then go for the third one. Do not pick up stuff that are a bit outdated or saturated in your thesis. So these are some of the ideas or tips that can help you to pick the right stuff from your thesis and put it into a research paper. Now, once you have picked up that, okay, which parts you want to pick up and you want to put it in your thesis, in your research paper, the next part is to prepare an outline for your paper. Now, in a paper, it's more like the way I look at a paper is more the way I look at a movie. Okay, so your paper should have a title similar to a movie has a title, right? Then a movie has a trailer, and in the same way you should have an abstract in your paper. Now abstract is usually the part which should be very catchy, very attractive, very appealing, in the same way as it is for a movie. You see the trailer, we see, and then we get attracted to the movie, that okay, this is a movie I should watch. In the same way, the abstract should be something very glamorous, very appealing, so that I decide that okay, there is something in the whole of the paper and I should read the paper. The third one is introduction. So introduction is usually the part where the reviewer decides that he's inclined towards accepting your paper or he's inclined towards rejecting your paper. So this is the part where you usually answer questions like why this research was needed, why is it new, why is it significant, which are very, very critical questions for a research paper to answer. So introduction is the part where you answer these questions, and it is, I believe, that it is one of the most difficult parts in writing a research paper. The fourth one is the literature review. So the introduction of a paper, I look at it as the opening scene of a movie, right? The literature review, I look at it as in what other movies are similar to this movie. So in this one, what we do is that we compare our research with other related research, and then we position the novelty of our work. We present the gap analysis that okay, this study has done this thing, this thing, this thing, but this part is missing, and here our paper is going to address this particular gap. The fifth one is methodology. So methodology is like the production of a movie, that how the movie was made, right? Like for example, what kind of equipment they used, what kind of production team they have, and so on and so forth. Methodology is essentially you answer the question how you conducted this research. And it is important because research is not only about the findings, it's about the credibility as well, that whether you have done the research in the right way or not. Only then one can have some trust in your findings. Results is like the whole of the movie, the content of the movie. So results is where you present your findings against the research questions that you have. Now, the the discussion part. So the discussion part is where author reflects on the findings, that how what is good in these findings and what is not good in these findings, right? So it's like the when a movie is made, so there are people called critics, and they see that what was good in this movie, what was not good in this movie, and so on and so forth. So this is the part where we go and we discuss, or we put it in the discussion part. Discussion part is, I believe, the most trickiest, more than even writing the introduction section. And for me personally, it is my favorite part in a research paper. Then after discussion, we write the conclusion. So here we also put forward some stuff for like future research, that what kind of research can be converted, can be done based on the research reported in this paper. And then we have the references part. Now, as far as the outline is concerned, so we have Paperpal, and what Paperpal can do is that it can create an excellent outline for you. It can divide each part into subsections and put in some main points, okay, what should go into each sub part. So in this quick demo, we can have a look at how you can create an outline. So here we go, we create a new document. Then we go to the outlines, then research article, then we talk about the subject area. So for example, in my case, it's computer science, and then you briefly write about the paper, that what is the paper about, and so on. And then you see that it has created an outline where there are sections and then there are subsections. Okay, so you're good with it, and then you can go to insert and put it in the main document body. So here comes the outline of your paper. It has the introduction, it has the literature review, it has the methodology, results and analysis, and conclusion. So with this one, you can very easily, in seconds, you can see an outline for your paper, that okay, what should be different sections and subsections of your research paper. Now the next part is about mapping mapping thesis chapters to paper sections. So in case you are going for the part where you are only gonna be taking or extracting one paper from your thesis, in that case this is relevant. So the thesis title should become the paper title. Maybe it's different. Then the abstract of the thesis, it's a bit broad, so you have to make it specific for your paper. Then the thesis introduction, again the same, that is very broad, you have to make it more specific for the research paper, and so on and so forth for the other sections as well. So essentially, thesis very broad, each section, and then for research paper that need to be made more specific. Now writing the abstract, this is an example which you can follow. It should have 6 parts. It should have the importance of your study, then the gap statement, then the objective of your study, methodology, key findings, and implications. So it should be like, as I mentioned, the trailer of your paper. Now, if you want to write abstract in a good way, let's suppose you have written the abstract or the introduction section of your paper, and then you want to automatically convert it into a good abstract. So Paperfall offers this feature, which is something that you can use. So let's have a look at how you can write automatically write an abstract based on the introduction of your paper. So we go here to the manuscript, then we say abstract, then you put in your introduction, and then you say generate. So it has generated an abstract based on the introduction that you have written. And after that, if you're happy with it, then you can just push insert and your abstract will be inserted into your paper. Now the next part is the introduction part, and in this part what we do is that we introduce the topic, we describe the background, then we establish the research problem. So these are the parts where you need to provide solid references to justify the significance of this study, to justify the novelty of this study. And this is one of the most critical parts. You need to provide some solid modification that why you have done this study, right? And then comes objectives, methodology, and presenting the outline of your paper. Now for finding references, it is certainly a difficult part. So some people, what they do is that you write in a flow, and then when you see that, okay, for example, some of the statements that can be supported through references. Now Paperpal has a very interesting feature which can help you to find references and have it automatically inserted into your introduction section or any part of your paper for that matter. Let's have a look how it works. Let's suppose this is an introduction that you have written, and this is a part where you want to insert a reference. So you pick that part. Paperpal will look into that 250 million plus papers, and then it will suggest you that, okay, for example, this statement can be supported through this particular paper. So it has suggested some papers. You can have a quick look, and then you can pick one and say cite. So here you see that that particular paper has been cited to support this statement. You want to pick for another statement, just pick it, say cite, and Paperpal will help you to identify the right paper that can support this statement. And here we go, the reference has been cited. The next part is about the literature review, again an important part in your paper. So how we are going to go about this one? So first we'll collect the relevant papers, then we group them based on themes, summarize each group, highlight limitations, and then connect gap to your work. Now one thing that you need to keep in mind, do not go about writing the descriptions of the study. This study has done this, and so on. It should be critical analysis, one liner what they have done, and then mostly what was good in that, what was missing in that. The missing part is more important. You mention a paper and then you say what was missing in that paper or that set of papers. That would bring you to the gap statement and gap analysis, that okay, this study has done this, another study this, and then this is missing in all these related studies, and this is where our paper comes in and fill that gap. Methodology section. So a few tips for that one: try to include a diagram that show the whole process of how you conducted this research. Then methodological choices, those needs to be justified. Like for example, if you have picked up a data set, just provide a reference why you have picked up that data set. Then an exemplar, this is what I've seen in some papers. If it's possible, it is really easy to see that how an output is produced against an input. Then you, if you have some extra material, you put it as an index, and then before you submit to a journal, have a look at the journal's methodology section, that how they have written it or how they expect you to write the methodology section, so that making sure that your paper does not lead to a disk rejection. Now the methodology section of your thesis is going to be very long, right? But you can't bring in all that content into your research paper. So there is this feature called trimming text, whereby you can reduce the text without affecting the meaning of your content significantly. So this can definitely help you to automatically shorten text that is in your thesis and then put the trim text into your research paper. So let's see how it works. So let's suppose this is a part of my research methodology in my thesis, and I want to shorten it. So what I'll do is that I'll just select the part that I want to shorten, and then I will have an option that how much I want to shorten it: 15%, 25%, 35%. I say 35%. So Paperpal, it will go on and reduce the size of text without significantly affecting the meaning or what was conveyed in that part of text. I'm okay with it. We replace. So this one is certainly much shorter as compared to the previous one. Now, as far as the results part is concerned, so here you can report results based on multiple types of categorizations. So either you can divide the sections based on research question, based on the experiments you have conducted, based on the objective, or based on the concept. Then my other big suggestion is to use tables and figures to communicate your findings. Do not be overly texty person. Then describe the main findings. So you can state the main finding, add some supporting numbers, and highlight the patterns and differences. This is very important to convey the insights or the patterns that are common in your results. And then if applicable, you can do the statistical tests, and also show that whether your findings are significant or they're not significant. Some general tips that I have for writing the results section is that let the figures and tables speak. As I mentioned, if you provide all in all your findings in text, it will become too boring to read. Then one thing I have seen is that sometimes what we claim that we have done in the abstract and in the introduction, our results do not support their claims. So don't do that. Claim only those things that you can support through your findings in the result section. Then be short and direct. Do not try to think that if you just elaborate unnecessarily that will have your paper get accepted. Be to the point. And as I mentioned that your support your claim, your results should support your claims, then use subheadings. And again, the same point, do not be someone who is just filling out the text without conveying any significant meaning. The discussion section of a research paper, as I mentioned, that this is the most trickiest part in a research paper, difficult part to write. Now, generally what I do is that I try to look for these 6 answers in a discussion section. The first one is that you have done research. Okay, what is different in your findings as compared to the findings of the previous research? Then the second one is that what is similar in your findings compared to the previous research? Then the third one is that how different sections of your results section correlate. So like you have section 1, 2, 3, then try to have a holistic view of them. Do they correlate in some way? Can we extract some findings, more insights from that? The fourth one is that what are the implications of your findings for practitioners? Okay, so if there is industry people, what can they get out of it? Then the fifth one is that what can researchers get out of it? Can they do some research on the top of the research that you have reported? And lastly, what are the limitations or threats to readability of findings? As I mentioned that none of the research is perfect. There are always some threats like external threats, internal threats, conclusion threats. Do mention them upfront, be honest. This is a sample discussion section that you can follow in case you do not have one. It is always good to put some exemplars in front of you while writing a research paper. It always helps, at least in my case, it has always helped me. The conclusion section. So the conclusion section should have 6 parts. What was the problem or the research question that you answered? What are the key findings? Okay, what are the implications of those findings? Then what are the limitations? What future work can be done on top of that? And then ending it with a strong conclusion or closing statement. Now, once you have written the paper, after that you need to polish it. As we write, especially if we are non-native English speakers, there could be grammatical mistakes, inconsistencies, and so on and so forth. So we can have that removed very quickly by using this feature of Paperpal. So let's have a look how it works. So let's suppose this is the text I have written for my paper, and then I go to language, and then I see that all these underlined parts, so they would make some suggestions. You can accept if you agree with that. In this way, you see that all of your paper would be refined and would be polished. So all those small kind of grammatical and typo issues would be fixed. Okay, now you have written the paper, you have polished it. Now the next part is that you need to think about that how a reviewer will review your paper or assess your paper. So they are going to look for 5 questions to be answered. The first one is the significance. is this research important or not? For example, if you have done research on some topic that is completely dead, they would say, okay, you have done research, but nobody's going to benefit from it, so let's not accept it. The second one is it new? Okay, if they decide it's significant, next question is that are your findings redundant or are they new? The third one is the methodology. Okay, you have done important research, it is new, but have you done it in the right way or not? Can we trust your findings? The fourth one is verifiability. Can other researchers following your methodology replicate your findings or not? And last one, have you presented it in the right way or not? Some very good research you have done, but nobody can understand it, you're not able to communicate it, again it would fail to fly. Now before you send it into a journal for publication, what you can do is that you can have an internal review and see that what are the strengths and weaknesses of my paper. So for that one, there is this feature called AI review, and it can help you to identify the weaknesses and strengths in your paper. Let's have a look how it works. So we go to checks, then we go to AI review, and then we go down and there is a part called review the manuscript section by section. So you have your manuscript on the right side, and Paperpal is going to go and identify the strengths and weaknesses for each section. It's the strengths and weaknesses in the abstract, then in the introduction part, motivation part, and so on and so forth. So you can take this feedback, you can reflect on it, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. If you agree with it, then you can certainly go on and address the issues identified by Paperpal AI review. Okay, now you have improved your paper, you have written the paper, you have polished it, you have improved it through the review process, and lastly, before you submit it to a journal, you're going to look at that whether it is ready for submission or are there some other formatting issues or some kind of issues against the guidelines or the requirements of the journal. So for this one, we have this manuscript readiness check that you can use to make sure that your paper does not get disrejected. So let's have a look how it works. So we go to submission check, then we upload our paper, and these are the parts which Paperpal will look for in your paper. And here we go. So it has identified the issues that makes it not worthy of submission at the same point. So you can address these points and then you're good to go and submit it to a journal. Now, how we pick which journal to submit to? This is again an important question. So there are multiple ways to decide which journal to submit. The first one is like the impact factor. Is it a good journal or not? The impact factor is high or not? The journal ranking, is it Q1, is it Q2, is it Q3? Then the cost, whether I have to pay money to have it published or not. Then another one is the relevance, that whether this journal is relevant to my domain where I work or not. And lastly, the review time, how much time it's going to take for the journal to have the paper published. These are some of the factors which can help you determine which journal you should submit to. Now, there is this journal finder which with Paperpal, and what they can do is that they can suggest some journals to you that these are the potential or the best suitable journals for your paper. So the way it works is, let's have a look. So we put in the abstract out of our paper, and then we ask Paperpal to suggest us journals. So it has picked all these different journals, and on the right side you can see like the impact factor, the citation score, the relevance ranking, and so on and so forth. So this way you can have all data in one place, and then you can decide for yourself that which journal is going to be the best for your paper. Okay, so this brings us to the last part. So far what we did was that we looked at the uh, the difference between thesis in a research paper. Then we looked at the why it is hard to convert thesis into a research paper. Then we looked at the steps, that okay, these steps we follow and we can convert thesis into a research paper. And within that I tried to share that how we can automate certain parts of it. So just to end it, there are a few points. The first one is that I believe that if you have done research, it's always good to convert it into a publishable form. This way you can share the findings with a community, and this also brings you some kind of recognition, or more so recognition to your research. Now the next point is that sometimes we can be selfish. We try to fit in everything into that we have done into a research paper. That's not a good idea. Try to pick the best parts, the most novel and strongest parts, and put it into a research paper. Then my suggestion is that try to spend more time on identifying what should go into a research paper. What are the parts that are worthy of publishing? And lastly, that you should use AI tools, but use them in an ethical and responsible manner. Have a look at the guidelines of the journal where you plan to submit, and that can also help you to make sure that you use AI tools, but use it in an ethical and responsible manner.
A huge thank you to Fahim for sharing such valuable insights and for breaking this process down with such clarity. We truly appreciate the depth you brought to the session. Building on what you have shared, we have been working on something similar at Paperpal, a small internal prototype designed to support those same key steps that we discussed. Let's take a look at the video to show how this comes together.
What if you could transform your thesis into a clean, publication-ready paper without sacrificing authorship, without concerns about AI writing, and in just 1/3 of the time? This is Paperpal's upcoming thesis-to-manuscript workflow built to accelerate your path to publication. Here's an early preview of what is coming to Paperpal. Let's begin. Step 1. Select Thesis to Paper from your dashboard. Step 2. On the Thesis to Paper screen, click Upload or drag and drop your thesis document. Step 3. After uploading, select Analyze Document to begin the end-to-end AI-assisted process. Once your thesis is uploaded, the system conducts a structured assessment of your document. It evaluates chapter-level depth, novelty of insights, completeness of results, and background density, while also checking for redundancy and ideas. Based on this analysis, the system identifies between 1 and 5 strong publication flows, each grounded entirely in the content of your thesis. For each flow, the system specifies the exact type of article it represents, provides a clear rationale for why that particular flow was selected, and shows precisely which thesis chapters support the structure. You are fully assured that all material within these flows is drawn strictly from your thesis. Once you narrow down your publication flow, you can review and refine the flow by collaborating with Paperpal AI to ensure it strictly aligns with your publication goals. You can even share your flow with peers or supervisors to validate your direction or revise it further, ensuring that you remain fully in the loop at every stage. In case you need to publish a more niche paper from your thesis that isn't part of the mainstream flows, you can generate an entirely new flow to suit that purpose. Once you have fully reviewed and are satisfied, click Save. This flow will now be used as backbone to develop your manuscript draft. At this stage, Paperpal also offers an optional step to finalize the journal that your paper can be published in. You can view matching journals to select the best suited according to your needs. If needed, you can request our elaborate journal recommender service, offering a deeper search based on scope, fit, and constraints. If you already have a journal decided, you can simply upload your journal guidelines. When ready, click Finalize Blueprint to proceed. Note that this step is optional, and at this stage, you can skip journal selection altogether. Step 4. Here's is where you achieve your second milestone of your publication journey, creating an elaborate outline of your paper, also called as the manuscript blueprint. Here you can review your manuscript structure, including titles, section headings, and the full high-level outline. Selecting any section reveals a detailed breakdown of the key elements drawn from your thesis. At any given point of time, you can refine and reorder sections to generate a blueprint that is fully representative of your manuscript. Here as well, you can download and share the blueprint for any guidance or approvals as required. Once you have finalized the structure, click Lock Blueprint. This finalizes the skeleton that will shape the manuscript. Step 5. Here's is where you land on the main manuscript workspace, where you'll see that each subsection is built with content extracted directly from your thesis, ensuring authorship integrity and transparency. Here is where you build the manuscript section by section, collaborating with Paperpal AI. With access to all Paperpal writing and research tools, you finalize each section, refine where necessary, and proceed through the document until all parts are complete. When the manuscript reaches 100%, click Finalize to complete the draft. With a structured flow design, a rigorous blueprint, and thesis-anchored draft generation, all under your full supervision, you can confidently transform your thesis into a manuscript you can truly stand behind. Powered by AI, but authored by you.
Thank you for watching the video with us. We'd really value your feedback, what resonated with you, what could be improved, or if there's anything you'd like us to explore as we continue shaping this. And with that, a heartfelt thank you to all of you for joining us today, for your engagement, and for the important research you're working on. We hope today's session gave you clarity and momentum you need as you take your work forward. Have a wonderful rest of the day.